The dusty frontier town of Silver Creek in 1879 pulsed with the chaotic energy of the Colorado Gold Rush. Miners with heavy pockets mingled with drifters and opportunists in a place where fortune and peril walked hand in hand. Inside the Silver Creek saloon, the air hung thick with whiskey, tobacco smoke, and unspoken threats. I sat in a shadowed corner, nursing a glass of amber liquid. My name is Thomas Wheeler, 42 years old, that autumn. A man shaped by 2 decades of restless wandering across ranches and open ranges. Standing 6'2" with broad shoulders hardened by labor, dark brown hair touching my collar, and a full beard framing a sun-weathered face, I looked tougher than my quiet nature suggested. My scarred hands told stories of hard work, and my eyes carried the weight of a past I preferred to forget. Roots had never taken hold for me. Running had become my only constant. That fateful evening, the door swung open and she stepped inside. Sarah Morrison, no more than 18, carried an air of youthful defiance mixed with vulnerability. Her long, dark brown hair fell in soft waves down her back, and her delicate features stood out amid the rough crowd. She laughed loudly with 3 older miners who had struck gold recently, her movements too provocative in a fancy white lace dress that seemed out of place in this rugged settlement. The dress spoke of money spent unwisely, and her forced laughter masked deeper unease. I knew of her family from years past. Her father Richard had built a solid ranch before a deadly infection took him when she was just a baby. Her mother Catherine had single-handedly kept that ranch thriving, earning respect across the territory as a strong, beautiful widow with striking dark features and an unbreakable will. As the night wore on and drinks flowed, one miner grew bold, his hand gripping Sarah's arm. Fear flashed in her young eyes beneath the laughter. Without thinking, I stood. "That's enough," I said firmly. The miners turned, hands drifting toward their belts, but my steady gaze and imposing frame gave them pause. I was no gunslinger, yet my lack of fear made me formidable. "The girl has had enough. I'll see her home safely." After tense moments, they relented with uneasy chuckles. I approached Sarah, who looked at me with a mix of gratitude and embarrassment. "Does your mother know where you are?" I asked. She admitted the lie about being at church, her words slurred. Offering my hand, I led her out into the cool night. The ride to the Morrison Ranch took nearly 30 minutes through winding canyons where coyotes howled in the distance. Sarah sat before me on my horse, occasionally leaning against my chest in half-sleep, carrying the scents of whiskey, perfume, and trail dust. "Why help me?" she murmured. "Because someone needed to," I replied simply. The ranch appeared as I remembered, a sturdy log cabin, well-kept barn, and strong fences reflecting careful stewardship. Lights burned inside. As we approached, Sarah panicked, sobering slightly. "Mother can't see me like this." I helped her down and toward the porch, but the door opened before we reached it. Catherine Morrison stood there, illuminated by lamplight, wearing a simple cream nightgown with delicate lace. At 42, the same age as me, she radiated a beauty born of resilience and quiet strength. Her long dark hair hung in a loose braid, and her dark features showed initial terror for her daughter before shifting to recognition. She had seen me years ago at a neighboring ranch, though our interactions had been brief. "What happened? Is Sarah hurt?" she demanded. I assured her all was well, explaining the situation briefly. Catherine's eyes took in her daughter's disheveled state and sent her inside with a sharp command. Turning back, gratitude filled her voice. "Thank you." Not everyone would have intervened. There was something more in her eyes, an understanding of the respect behind my actions. I intended to leave at first light, continuing my rootless path. Yet, as dawn broke over the canyon, Catherine approached while I saddled my horse. She offered practical work through November, mending fences, breaking horses, tending cattle. $30 a month, meals, and a small cabin nearby. It was honest labor on good land. Looking at this woman who had built a life from loss, I felt a pull I had long resisted. "All right," I said. "I'll stay through November," she nodded, as if expecting my answer. I settled into the cabin a quarter-mile from the main house, ready for whatever the coming weeks would bring. Little did I know this decision would reshape my entire existence. The crisp autumn days on the Morrison Ranch brought a rhythm I had never known in my wandering years. From the first light of dawn until the stars claimed the sky, Catherine and I worked shoulder to shoulder. We repaired long stretches of fence before the harsh winter winds arrived, broke in spirited young horses with patience and firmness, and moved cattle to richer grazing lands. Catherine spoke sparingly, yet every action revealed her deep intelligence and connection to the land. She could read the subtle contours of hills and valleys like an open book, predicting where water would flow or grass would thrive. Her hands moved with purpose, never wasting a single motion, and her love for the horses shone through in the gentle yet commanding way she handled them. Watching her brought a warmth to my chest that I had long tried to ignore. About 2 weeks into my stay, she demonstrated how to gentle a particularly wild young stallion in the corral. Her confidence and understanding of the animal's instincts held me captivated far more than the horse itself. When she noticed my gaze lingering, she said with a teasing edge, "You're not paying attention to the lesson, Thomas." I smiled and replied honestly, "I'm paying attention just to the finest teacher I've ever seen." For the first time, a real, unguarded smile broke across her face, softening the lines of hardship and making her appear younger, more alive. That smile stayed with me through the following days. Sarah kept her distance at first, still carrying shame from that night in the saloon and resentment toward her mother's disappointment. But as time passed, she began observing my steady work from afar. Eventually, curiosity won out. She started helping with smaller tasks, carrying tools, learning to check water troughs, and asking thoughtful questions about judging a horse's temperament or reinforcing fences to withstand heavy snow. By the middle of October, our conversations grew easier, and a tentative trust began to form between us. One evening, while Catherine and I rode along a distant fence line checking for weak spots, she opened up more than usual. "Sarah is warming to you," she said quietly. I wasn't certain she would after everything. I nodded, acknowledging the girl's initial anger at both the situation and my interference. Catherine gazed across the darkening pasture. When my husband passed, I thought my only duty was to shield her from every danger. But perhaps she needs room to learn from her own mistakes, to understand that some freedoms are really traps in disguise. Her voice carried the heavy wisdom of someone who had survived profound loss. I shared my own regrets, how 20 years of running from a failed youthful love had left me isolated, afraid to stay anywhere long enough to matter. This place, this work, and being near you. "It's making me question everything I thought I knew about myself," I confessed. A few days later, after a long day driving cattle to fresh pasture, we stopped at a clear stream to let the horses drink and rest our weary bodies. Catherine sat on a smooth rock, and I settled nearby with respectful distance. She turned to me with vulnerable eyes. "Why did you really step in that night for Sarah?" I chose truth over easy answers. "Because I knew you even from those brief encounters years ago. I couldn't stand the idea of either of you facing unnecessary pain." She spoke of her terror at losing control as Sarah grew into womanhood. I reassured her that her guidance remained strong and valuable. As the conversation deepened, our hands found each other naturally. We sat in comfortable silence, the only sounds the gentle flow of water and horses drinking. In that peaceful moment, something shifted irrevocably between us. Later, as golden light bathed the land, I leaned in and kissed her with gentle question. Catherine responded with surprising warmth, her hand resting against my chest. "Stay," she whispered against my lips. The word carried both hope and fear. I promised I would, feeling for the first time in decades that I had found where I truly belonged. The days that followed were filled with shared labor and growing affection, building a foundation stronger than any fence on the ranch. Yet November loomed, bringing uncertainty about whether this new life could last. November arrived with biting winds sweeping across the Colorado plains. Yet the bond between Catherine and me had grown far deeper than our original agreement. One cold night in the barn, Amari went into labor, and we kept watchful vigil together on piles of fresh hay. Catherine moved with practiced calm, speaking in low, soothing tones to the restless animal, while checking her progress with steady hands. I stayed by her side through the long hours, the lantern casting warm shadows around us. As the strong, dark colt finally entered the world, struggling to its feet and seeking its mother's milk, I found the courage to speak what had been building in my heart for weeks. "I'm not leaving when November ends," I said quietly. Catherine paused but did not seem surprised. She focused on the newborn while listening. I continued, pouring out my feelings. "Since the night I brought Sarah home, since that kiss by the stream, I've known this is where I belong. 2 months may seem short, but I don't want another day without you, without this life we're building together." The foal took its first wobbly steps as the mare nickered protectively. Catherine stood, brushing hay from her dress, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "I love you, Thomas," she admitted softly. "I think I have, since you showed kindness and honor when you could have taken advantage. You proved there are still good men willing to stay." I held her close, feeling the steady beat of her heart against mine. "I have little to offer, no great wealth or land of my own, but I give you my hands, my unwavering work, and a solemn promise never to run again." She melted into my embrace, accepting the future we both desired. Sarah, who had grown fond of me over the weeks, later found me repairing fences and spoke with surprising maturity. "You're going to stay, aren't you? Mother needs someone who won't leave? She's happier with you than I've seen since Father died." Her words moved me deeply, confirming that this family was ready to open its arms. The months turned into years. I remained on the ranch, working beside Catherine through every season: spring calving, summer harvest, autumn preparations, and long winters by the fire. Our partnership blossomed into a profound, steady love built on mutual respect, shared labor, and quiet passion. Sarah grew into a responsible young woman under our guidance, eventually starting a family of her own. 30 years passed in what felt like a beautiful blink of an eye. Sitting with grandchildren gathered around on a quiet evening, I recounted our story with a full heart. "Your grandmother was the strongest person I ever knew," I told them. "Not because she never stumbled, but because she always rose again with grace and love. She faced loss and hardship, yet kept building something meaningful. I was privileged to spend those decades working beside her, loving her, and watching her strength inspire everyone around us. That small decision in the Silver Creek Saloon, helping a young girl find her way home, marked the true beginning of my life." When asked about regrets, I answered without hesitation. "Not a single one. From that moment onward, everything made sense. It taught me that doing what is right, even when inconvenient, opens the door to real happiness. It's about having the courage to love and be loved in return, despite the risks." I closed my eyes, remembering Catherine's face in the lamplight that first night, the feel of her hand in mine, and countless mornings waking beside her. The ranch thrived under our care, becoming a legacy of resilience and devotion. In the end, the frontier had given me more than I ever dared hope for: a home, a family, and a love that endured.